Hey everyone, this is Paul, SouthP24 from Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for coming back for another tutorial. This time we'll be talking about the 212th Attack Battalion clone from Hasbro the Black Series. This is a figure that I've wanted for some time. It's an improvement with the new Hasbro clone body. The articulation is much improved over the previous version. Yes, it's only got a single jointed knee, but I do find you can get into better poses than the old clone trooper body. The only thing this guy needs, I find, is a little bit of paint just to liven him up. So we're going to take him from this to this and bring out a little bit more realism and make him look a bit more like they do in the movie Revenge of the Sith. So let's get into it. So everything in this tutorial is really about painting. It's the bulk of what needs to be done to correct this figure straight out of the package. First thing is, really, it's to darken up the orange color on the figure. I found it's a little bit too bright. So there is an application of paint that I've done over the orange. Then it's a couple of weathering steps. So I'm going to be using a white paint to try and chip away some of that orange to make it look more battle worn. The way I see this guy is it's Revenge of the Sith Phase 2. It's more the tail end of the Clone Wars, so he's seen some action. That's definitely why I've gone with a bit of a more of a dirtier weathered look. And it also just brings a layer of realism to it. So there's a white paint to sort of imply that the orange has been chipped away. Over top of that, that's when I start adding a bit more grime and dirt, and also a small amount of paint wash just to get into those nooks and crannies. And I'll bring out the detail of what really is a pretty good sculpt. I'm actually a big fan of the new clone body that we've got from Hasbro versus the original one. The double jointed knees and everything. I just find it looks a little bit better. I know people complain about the shoulders seeming a bit slim, but it doesn't bother me. And overall, it's just got better articulation. The last thing is, of course, the visor line. So this is more of an animated look. There's a hybrid of stuff going on with this figure. I'm not sure what they were going for, but not having that black line painted is definitely more for the Clone Wars animated series. So just adding that little bit of black on the visor line just makes them appear more like they do in the movie itself. And as a final step in this tutorial, I'll also show you about a very simple hand swap. So as you can see here on this left hand, these are a set of multiple hands that are available from GI Trooper kits on Etsy. And there's a whole series of them, but with a small modification to this wrist peg, you're able to swap in the original hand that comes with the figure with relative ease. I still like it to be tight, so you can always bring him back, and of course he'll grip his blaster no problem. But then just to give him a broader range of expressions, you can start swapping in all these cool hands just to kind of make him seem like he's in the midst of some action. So yeah, let's get into the tutorial. The first thing we're going to tackle with this project are the knees. With those knee pads glued to the thigh, you can see it creates a weird gap as soon as you start posing the figure. So what I do using a sharp blade is I just slowly get underneath the knee pad and start to free it up from where it meets the thigh armor. You're going to want to work slowly, and then eventually you'll be able to just pull it away with your fingers. Now once it's loosened up, of course, you're going to have a little bit of a rough patch, which I just sand smooth with some sandpaper. And then of course now we've got a big white piece. So with a little bit of black paint, I'm just going to hit that on both the knees. Let it dry. You can always then apply some sealant, and there you go, knee problem fixed. It's a small detail, but you can also go over the back of the knee pad strap with some black paint just for screen accuracy. It's such a minor thing, but that little black visor line on the helmet really makes this figure for me. I prefer it to look more like he does in the Revenge of the Sith. So using some masking tape, I'm just slowly going across that little line. And again, if you've ever painted a face before at the scale or another helmet, it just requires a steady hand, and know that you can always come back, and if you go over with the black, you can always come back with some white paint just to clean up your edges. Next up, to address the orange on the trooper, I'm using a color called Dark Earth, but you can use any kind of light brown. And we're really just washing the orange everywhere on the figure. So it's a light application. It's not like a full opaque paint or repaint. And you can see it's minor, but I feel it really makes a difference in terms of the overall look and realism. As we get into weathering, it's really about how dirty and how battle worn you want your clones to look. One step here that you can optionally do is use a little bit of white paint on a sponge and just lightly dab it over the areas of orange. So giving it that effect that the paint's kind of chipped away, revealing the white armor underneath. You can do this or kind of just on the ridges or on the raised parts of the armor and really have fun with it. Test what works for you. The next step is to start adding some dirt and grime to your clones. And for this, I use paint washes. You see some people go nuts and adding shoe polish and all this, but it can kind of get too much too quick. With the paint wash, you just want to let it settle into the cracks of the sculpt. The idea is that wherever there's dirt or oil and stuff getting onto the clone armor, it's where it's been wiped away, but then still sits within those little cracks and crevices and make it seem like it's been there for some time. So always start with a little bit less. You can apply more later, and you can see it starts to really bring out the details of the sculpt. So if the paint wash was the dirt that gets into the crevices of the armor, then a sponging technique is the dirt and splatter that stays on the surface of the armor. So to do this, we're taking any old sponge, and I'm using a dark paint. You almost want all the paint removed from the sponge, truly. It's like a dry brushing technique where you're just lightly dabbing to get the splattered effect just by where the sponge is going to hit the raised edges of the figure or places that would naturally get more dirty, like the legs, the chest. I don't go too heavy on the helmet itself, just more around the neck area of the helmet. And you can see what it starts to do is just create more of a realistic look of where more dirt and grime might end up landing on the clone during the course of battle. I got this set of 3D printed hands from GI Trooper kits on Etsy, but if you look around, there are some different sellers that offer them. And it's just a great way to add a unique personality to each one of your clones so that when they're standing on the shelf, they all look a little bit different. The first step to doing this is to heat up the wrists and the arms using hot water or a blow dryer. Then you can safely remove the original hand without breaking the peg. And then with your blade, you just want to remove a small amount of plastic so that you can easily insert the swappable hands, but you don't want to remove too much so that it won't also hold the original stock hands from Hasbro. So the idea is to remove just enough so that it's easily swappable without having to heat up the figure each time you want to change hands. So there you have it. Thanks for sticking with the tutorial. Hope you found it helpful. Be sure to leave some comments, questions. Hit me up on Instagram, SouthP24. Always happy to chat about your projects and things like that. I think as you can see, it's I've obviously gone for more of a heavily weathered look. Brought my Cody in here and you can see kind of a similar weathering style that I've applied to all my 212 clones. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, if you want to keep your clones clean, this guy is still a perfectly good figure. And I'll probably weather up these two guys eventually so I have a bit more of the battalion. But for me, just to have that realism, the ability to swap hands, I just think it's worth the effort. So thanks again, and yeah, we'll see you next time.